Welcome back to another episode of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Policki. He's Jacob Liberta. We're a Minnesota sports podcast, so if you're a Minnesota sports fan and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. And if you're a Timberwolves fan, give this video a like. We're going to be discussing today just how far can the Timberwolves push down this last stretch of games here. I believe there's 23 games left coming out of the All-Star break. They're sitting 2.5 games back of the 6 seed Denver Nuggets, 4 games back of the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks. And then, of course, they have a little spacing between them and the LA teams that are behind them. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on this, Alberta? The Wolves they had a nice little stretch there. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games going into the All-Star break. Obviously, it kind of hurts losing that last game against Toronto when Toronto wasn't at full strength, and it could have been a winnable game at home. What are your thoughts on this Wolves team? Do you think this All-Star break was a good chance for them to kind of rest up, stay off their legs, and just kind of rejuvenate for this stretch run?
Yeah, you got to think so. I would bet that this was good for particularly Ant. I would say he probably felt, or at least more noticeably, felt the fatigue. So really, I'm excited to see how he comes out of the break. I think he obviously is going to take our team where, I mean, as high as we're going to climb is basically depend on Ant because he's the X factor here. He's got the most potential, I would say, among anybody on the squad. So really, it's just going to depend on how much this really helped. And I think the sky's the limit, as we've been saying about him all season. It's just I don't know how much better he'll get this year, but I mean it's maybe more about the future. It's just in the present time, but still, This is a time to be excited if you're a Wolves fan because this is the most meaningful basketball we played since the Jimmy year, and also really date back since the KG days. So I think there's certainly time to be excited. And I think these guys should be well rested, really primed for a stretch run, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, what's incredible about this season is that, granted, the year we had Jimmy, we will have a better record that year than we'll finish with this year, most likely. Unless the Wolves just go on a tear here down the stretch, but I'm not anticipating that given how difficult their schedule is. But we were the 8 seed that year with Butler. Granted, he missed a bunch of time. We kind of fell from the 3 seed, I believe, down to the 8 seed. But what's crazy is, like, potentially this year we could have a better seed than we did in the Jimmy year, even though the West is down considerably from where it was then. The 7 seed where we're at currently, I would say is probably where we're going to end up. I mean, Denver's just pulling off, they're beating all the odds, basically. Jokic is just carrying them to all these victories. And Luka's doing the same thing for the Mavs, who just got rid of Porzingis. They've had some injury issues as well with some of their key role players. Tim Hardaway, for instance, has an injury. And Luka's carrying his team to victory too. It's like, I don't envision a scenario where the Wolves are 3 games back of the Nuggets in the loss column, 4 games back of the Mavs in the loss column. I have a really hard time envisioning us, catching and passing those teams unless we go on some sustained winning streak here, say a 6 or 7 game winning streak. To kind of pull us back into that. But, I mean, what are your thoughts on the way the standings are shaping up? Do you think the Wolves, have a shot at catching these guys, or do you think the 7 seed, 8 seed possibly is about where they'll end up?
Yeah, we could have a really strong finish to the season where we win even 2/3 of our games, and that might not still be enough just because those teams in front of us are all very strong in their own right. Still, I'm a little skeptical about the way the Nuggets, like you said, have been winning. It seems like they're defying all the odds. Jokic just been a one-man wrecking crew, and they've just propelled themselves into a solidified spot there in 6th in the Western Conference, and they could potentially catch the Mavericks. Who knows? But realistically, and then the Mavericks, that's another one that feels like they're being led by Luka and then a good supporting cast. So it's a very uphill climb for the Wolves to get to that point. So I think – I know it's not that much. It's like 3-4 losses, but I mean, when you only have 23 games left, that's quite a bit of ground to make up in a short period of time. So we're probably pretty locked into the 7-8 spot. We just gotta hang on to where we're at, I'd say, because then you would host 2 play-in games if you lost that first one, for instance, and have another chance to come back against the winner of that 9-10 game. So if you finish in that 7-8 spot, then you only have to win 1 of 2 games. But if you fall below that and end up 9-10, then you got to win 2 in a row, which obviously the odds do not favor you nearly as much that way. So I'm kind of hoping we just hang on to that 7th spot in the West right now, and anything else would probably be just gravy at this point.
Absolutely. And like when it comes to the Lakers, I don't see how they're going to be able to turn this around to climb back into the top 7 in the West. I mean, they're 4 games below 500. Anthony Davis just had another injury right before the break. Russell Westbrook's a disaster. Like LeBron can only do so much for that team. He's getting old. The Clippers do scare me a little bit just because apparently Paul George is on the mend and he could be back sometime in March. So, I mean, granted, that's only a couple of weeks for him being back before the playoffs start. But even so, if you end up having to face the Clippers in that first play-in game, I mean, that scares me because when Paul George was active earlier in the season, they destroyed the Wolves, I think, 3 games right out of the gate. They beat us all 3. So the Clippers scare me quite a bit in terms of a matchup. But what I'm kind of hoping for here is, say the Wolves get the 7 and say they somehow win that play-in game where they host that game. Memphis is only a game and a half back of Golden State for that 2 seed. I mean, if you're a Wolves fan and the Wolves aren't going to be able to catch Denver, you are pulling for Memphis to catch Golden State because you do not want to have to match up with Golden State in the first round of the playoffs. And Memphis might be a little ahead of their skis if they get that 2 seed. They might be riding high and I don't know, thinking that they're the next up and coming team or whatever, which they probably are. But you might be able to catch them in a vulnerable position if they're the 2 seed and you're the 7 seed. The Wolves match up well with the Grizzlies too. So whether it's the 3-6 matchup or the 2-7 matchup, it's looking within reach either way for the Wolves to be able to pull off playing the Grizzlies in the first round.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up there, that if we're not going to climb into the top 6 of the West, that we probably are rooting for Memphis to get into that 2 spot then, because in a 7-game series, I don't think we're beating a really veteran-led team like the Warriors have definitely been there, done that numerous times. Whereas really, I mean, you look at the top of the West now, I mean, the Suns obviously went to the finals last year. The Warriors, their stars have all won many championships. And then you got even the Jazz, who have now been in it for a few years, where they're consistently playing in these playoff series. It's just the Memphis star players like Ja and Jaren Jackson and stuff like that haven't played that many playoff games. So that feels more like a level playing field for us. So, and then if you think about it from like beyond experience and just on a basketball level, like they don't really have anybody, in my opinion, that can stop Cat. I know they got, Steven Adams, but I don't know. Cat's been a machine this year. So really, I think he could present a lot of problems for them in a playoff series, and maybe you'd have a fighting chance, or at least to push it to 6-7 games rather than a Warriors team that would just scare me a lot. So.
Exactly. And I think like Pat Bev would be such an X factor in a series against a young and experienced team like the Grizzlies, baiting guys into fouls, chit-chatting with the refs, being able to get some calls here and there. All that gamesmanship stuff is going to come into play, I think. But it's crazy to me how like Dallas just has the one superstar. Denver just has the one superstar, and those guys are carrying those teams. The Wolves have 2 stars for sure. Ant is going to be a superstar eventually, we're thinking. And D'Lo is a borderline star. I mean, he's having a great season. So it's like we have 3 pretty much stars, but it's kind of like the rest of the team is lacking a little bit. Like McDaniels has been playing better, but you're getting a down year from Beasley. Beverly's been in and out with injuries. Vanderbilt's shown great improvement. He's been a critical piece to this team. Hopefully this All-Star break was good for him because I know he was banged up going into the break. So I think the only issue that's really kind of holding the Wolves back right now is just the rest of the team hasn't quite come together how you'd expect it to. Like the Mavs are just getting key contributions from guys like Maxi Kleba and Jalen Brunson and all these, miscellaneous bench guys that, bench or role players that just come in and do their job. So, I think the Wolves, I mean, they're obviously on the come up, but it might just be a year too soon, honestly, for this team in terms of truly competing in the middle of this Western Conference.
That could definitely be it. I'd also add to, as much as I don't love names and the guys that fill out the rest of those rosters for the Mavericks and Nuggets, Luka and Jokic really are top. I mean, Jokic was the MVP last year. He's a probably top 5 player in the league, where for sure. Luka, I think, is a top 10 player. And really, we have 3 guys that I think are all, I would say, top 50 players, but I don't think anybody is more than Cat right now, and that's Cat, I feel like he's maybe pushing top 15, maybe top 20. Yeah. I feel like there's such a disparity when you truly have a top 5, top 10 player in the whole league that in the NBA, that's massive. It's amazing how big of a difference there is from having that to, like, for instance, a Cat. Like, Cat is phenomenal in his own right. But at the same time, like, Jokic is an MVP and Luka probably win one someday. And these guys, when they absolutely have to have it, they do, because they have all these triple doubles and things where like it's pretty few and far between when we just get carried by somebody in our games. Like, it feels like it all has to come together in this perfect recipe, perfect storm for us to win a game. So realistically, I think that's part of what it comes down to as well.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, the Wolves will go as far as Ant will take them, basically. As well as he plays directly correlates to how far the Timberwolves can possibly go. So
exactly,
you're right. If he can find another gear here after the All-Star break and really start, playing like a true All-Star. I know we thought he was maybe borderline All-Star before the rest of the rosters got announced, and then he wasn't even an injury replacement. DeJounte Murray got picked over him. So, like, he's on the cusp of being an All-Star. But if he can just play like a true All-Star down the stretch here, maybe steal a couple games for the Wolves that they maybe shouldn't, have any business winning. That could be the difference right there. And if you can get into that 6th seed and avoid the play-in, then all bets are off. Then we can just sit back and enjoy a full playoff series from the Timberwolves team that we haven't really gotten to experience any, throughout our lifetime, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I know that'd be a lot of fun, because it would feel more like this is the beginning of something rather than it all has to happen right now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's tough to project what next year looks like. Denver's going to have Jamal Murray back and Michael Porter Jr., and Dallas might make a move in the offseason, but Utah potentially could lose Donovan Mitchell. There's rumblings of him maybe wanting out. So, in Phoenix, Chris Paul, he's going to be out for a while now too. It sounds like basically up until the playoffs. So, and then his future's murky too. I mean, he's getting older. So it's like, and then the Lakers obviously are old. Like, there's so many different storylines going on here in the Western Conference that I think the Wolves are firmly in the top 10, especially going into next year. Once again, just looking at the teams below them, the Trailblazers are terrible. Dame could be gone. The Spurs are terrible. The Pelicans, I mean, they might be on the rise given some of their moves they've made, but the Zion thing is hanging over them too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's very fascinating. I don't think he wants any part of New Orleans, but really, I think everybody should be questioning Zion over the team right now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know what ground he has to stand on. He's played.
What's he proven?
Yeah, he basically had one full season, his rookie season. Last year he got hurt, I think, and then it's been nothing since then, right?
Yeah, no, I think even during his rookie year, he was out and they had to play him limited minutes.
Yeah, that sounds right. So he hasn't proven anything, and it could be like another Greg Oden situation. Like, somebody's going to end up trading for him, but what are they really going to get?
Yeah, you don't know. That's not something I'd want to touch.
No, absolutely not. So the future is definitely bright for the Wolves, and I just think any sort of playoff success they can have this year is house money. Getting to the playoffs is obviously the goal, and it was the goal before the season. Cementing ourselves in the top 8, so if there was no play-in, we'd still be in the playoffs anyways. I think that's super important for this team. Yes. And yeah, if you drop Phoenix or Golden State in the first round, then it's like, well, I mean, maybe win 1 or 2 games at the most, but
exactly.
Then it's all about building for next year and getting that experience. So definitely a promising outlook. They do have a tough schedule, especially right out of the gate here with Memphis and Philadelphia, Cleveland, those first 3 games coming out. So it'll be an interesting fight to the finish. But do you have any other final thoughts before we go about this stretch run for the Wolves?
Yeah, let's see how the offense comes out of the All-Star break. I know they were red hot basically since the calendar flipped to 2022, so I'm curious if they're going to keep the train rolling, if we're going to keep scoring 120, 130 points a game, and hopefully the defense will be able to complement that. I know we started very strong this year, but then it got quite frankly very bad before the All-Star break, so I'm hoping guys are recommitted to playing defense, but also still are feeling an offensive game of some sort, so that doesn't go back to the way it started where the offense was horrible in the half court, and hopefully we can find a balance there. And I think that's going to be big for us as far as winning games, especially against decent teams here in these last 23.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I'm a little worried that the offense might be a little rusty, even though it's only been a week, but it's just, I don't know. It's a young, inexperienced team, so we'll see how they do. But that's going to do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram and leave your comments below. What are your thoughts on how the Wolves can finish out the season here? How far do you think they can push up into this Western Conference playoff race? And what are your expectations for them once they do make the playoffs? So let us know what your thoughts are. And until next time, thanks for watching.